Get away from me. You're not my mother." My daughter Sarah screamed these words at me in the middle of Riverside Mall food court. Her face was contorted with rage, her eyes wild and unfamiliar. I stood frozen, my shopping bags dropping to the floor, as at least 30 people turned to stare. The Chinese food vendor paused mid-scoop. The teenage girls at the next table stopped their chatter and pulled out phones to record what was happening. "Sarah, honey, what are you talking about?" "It's me," I said, reaching for her arm. She jerked away violently. "Don't touch me. I know what you did. You're some kind of imposter." She backed away, pointing an accusing finger at me. "Where's my real mother? What have you done with her?" The security guard was already walking toward us. People whispered and pointed. My daughter, my own flesh and blood Hualio, looked at me like I was a monster. But what no one in that mall knew was that this public meltdown was just the beginning. What would unfold over the next 6 months would destroy everything I had built over my 61 years of life. My name is Margaret Cooper. What I'm about to tell you is the story of how my own family tried to take everything from me. My home, my savings, and even my identity. There was a time when our family was everything I had dreamed of. James and I married young. I was only 22. But we knew we wanted to build something lasting together. We bought our little 2-bedroom house on Maple Street with every penny we had saved. The mortgage payments were steep, but we managed. James worked at the manufacturing plant while I took accounting classes at the community college. Sarah came along 3 years later. She was such a beautiful baby, curious eyes and a smile that could light up a room. Every Sunday, we'd go to the park after church. James would push Sarah on the swings while I spread out our picnic lunch on the red and white checkered blanket that my mother had given us as a wedding present. "Higher, Daddy, higher," Sarah would squeal, her little legs kicking with excitement. James always knew exactly how high was safe, and he never took risks with our daughter. Christmas was always special in our home. We couldn't afford extravagant gifts, but we made up for it with traditions. Every year we'd bake gingerbread cookies together, letting Sarah decorate them with colorful icing. We'd hang our ornaments on the tree, each one with a story behind it. "Tell me about this one again, Mom," Sarah would say, holding up the small glass angel we'd bought on our trip to Gatlinburg. I never tired of telling those stories. "You're the best mom in the world," Sarah told me on her 16th birthday, when I surprised her with the second-hand guitar she'd been eyeing for months. I had taken on extra bookkeeping work for 3 months to afford it. "I don't know what I'd do without you. I'll always be here for you, sweetie," I promised, watching her fingers carefully pluck the strings. When James died of a heart attack 12 years ago, Sarah was my rock. She was only 23, but she moved back home temporarily to help me adjust to life alone. "We'll get through this together, Mom," she'd say, bringing me tea in the evenings as we sorted through James's belongings. Dad would want us to be strong. I never imagined those days of mutual support and love would come to an end. I never thought I'd see my daughter look at me with hatred in her eyes. When Sarah decided to go to college, I was determined to help her graduate without the burden of student loans. James and I had started a modest education fund when she was born, but after his death, the medical bills had depleted much of our savings. Still, I was committed to supporting her dreams. I took on a second job in the evenings, doing bookkeeping for 3 small businesses in town. Each month, I sent Sarah $1,200 for her expenses, which meant I had to cut back on almost everything else. I stopped getting my hair colored at the salon and learned to do it myself. I turned the thermostat down in winter and wore extra sweaters to save on heating. I sold my newer car and bought a used one outright to eliminate car payments. "Mom, "You don't have to do all this," Sarah said during one of her visits home. She had noticed the worn state of my clothes and the empty spaces where some furniture used to be. "Your education is the best investment I can make," I told her. "Your father would have wanted this." When Sarah met Benjamin during her final year of college, I was happy for her. He seemed polite and ambitious, with his new business degree and plans to open his own financial advisory firm. When they decided to get married after just 8 months of dating, I offered to help with the wedding costs, though it meant taking out a loan against my house. "Are you sure, Margaret?" my sister Alice asked me. "That's a lot of money on your fixed income." "It's her special day," I explained. "I want it to be perfect." The $18,000 I contributed paid for the venue and the catering. The wedding was beautiful, even if it stretched my budget to the breaking point. 2 years later, when Sarah and Benjamin decided to buy their first home, they struggled to come up with the down payment. I withdrew $22,000 from my retirement account, incurring a hefty tax penalty to help them reach the 20% they needed. "We'll pay you back as soon as Benjamin's business takes off," Sarah promised, hugging me tightly when I handed her the check. When their first child, my grandson Ethan, was born, I spent $3,000 on nursery furniture and baby supplies. 3 years later, I did the same for my granddaughter Lily. I watched the children 3 days a week so Sarah could work part-time at a local art gallery, saving them around $1,000 monthly in childcare costs. When Benjamin's financial advisory business struggled during its early years, I loaned them $15,000 to keep it afloat. "Just until we get some more clients," Benjamin assured me. "It's a sure thing, Margaret." Last year, when their minivan needed replacing, I co-signed on their auto loan, adding my name to potential financial obligations of $35,000. "It's the only way we can get approved for the loan," Sarah explained. "Your credit score is so much better than ours." All told, over 15 years, I had given or loaned Sarah and Benjamin over $110,000, nearly everything I had saved or could borrow. My retirement account was dangerously low. My house, once nearly paid off, now carried a substantial second mortgage. But I never complained. They were family, and family comes first. Looking back, I can see the warning signs, though I chose to ignore them at the time. It started with small things. About 3 years ago, during month 1, Sarah began canceling our weekly lunch dates. "Benjamin needs me to help with some client paperwork," or "Ethan has a play date I forgot about." The excuses seemed reasonable enough, but lunch dates that had once been sacred suddenly became optional. By month 3, my phone calls often went to voicemail. When Sarah did pick up, I could hear the impatience in her voice. "Mom, can I call you back? Now's not a good time." The callbacks rarely came. In month 5, I noticed changes when I visited their home to watch the grandchildren. Items I'd given them. The silver picture frames that had been my mother's, the handmade quilt I'd created for their wedding, disappeared from display. When I asked about them, Sarah shrugged. "We're going for a more modern look." By month 7, Benjamin had stopped acknowledging me when I arrived at their house. He would be gathering his things to leave just as I came in. "Oh, Margaret, didn't see you there," he'd say, without making eye contact. During month 8, Sarah began questioning my memory. When I mentioned a promise she'd made to bring the grandchildren for Sunday dinner, she frowned. "Mom, we never discussed that. Are you getting confused again?" There was no again. I had never been confused before. At the 9-month mark, I overheard Benjamin on the phone while I was watching the children. "No, we can't make it tonight. We have to drop by Margaret's. Yeah, it's a real drag, but Sarah feels obligated." By month 10, they had stopped bringing the children to my house entirely. "It's just easier if you come to us," Sarah insisted. I later discovered they were telling their friends I was becoming unreliable with the children. In month 11, Sarah made her first comment about my house. "Mom, this place is getting to be too much for you to maintain. Have you thought about selling?" At the 1-year mark, I received a birthday card signed only Sarah, Benjamin, and the kids. No personal message, no phone call, just a generic card that arrived 3 days late. During those same months, I noticed my prescription medications sometimes seemed fewer than they should be after their visits. My jewelry box, which I rarely opened, seemed rearranged. My financial statements, which I used to leave on my desk, disappeared, only to reappear in slightly different places. When I mentioned these oddities to my sister Alice, she raised concerns. "Margaret, are you sure everything's okay with Sarah and Benjamin? Something doesn't feel right." "They're just busy with the business and the kids," I defended them. "It's a stressful time." But the most troubling sign came about 4 months before the mall incident. Sarah asked me to sign some papers for a family insurance policy that Benjamin had arranged. When I said I wanted my lawyer to review them first, Sarah became unusually angry. "Don't you trust us, Mom, after everything we've done for you?" Her voice had a sharp edge I'd never heard before. I signed the papers without reading them completely. I didn't want to cause problems in our already strained relationship. That decision would come back to haunt me in ways I couldn't imagine. After the scene at the mall, Sarah insisted I see a doctor. "Mom, normal people don't just forget conversations we've had. You've been acting strangely for months." What Sarah didn't mention was that we hadn't had the conversation she was referring to. She claimed I had agreed to sell my house and move into a senior living community, something we had never discussed. Benjamin became unusually involved in my medical care. He insisted on being present during my doctor's appointment, interrupting frequently to mention concerning behaviors he had supposedly witnessed. "Dr. Reynolds, Margaret often seems disoriented when she's watching our children. Last week, she couldn't remember where we keep Ethan's EpiPen, which we've shown her dozens of times. This was a complete fabrication. Ethan had no allergies and had never needed an EpiPen. I tried to correct him, but Benjamin spoke over me. See how she gets confused and argumentative? We're really worried about her living alone." Dr. Reynolds, who had been my physician for only 6 months since my longtime doctor retired, ordered some cognitive tests. When I asked to see the results, Sarah intercepted them. "The doctor said he'd discuss them with you next time, Mom. Nothing to worry about." A week later, I discovered that Benjamin had contacted my bank to discuss alternative banking arrangements for me. The bank manager, thankfully, had refused to speak with him without my authorization. When I confronted Sarah about this, she smoothly changed the subject. "Mom, have you thought more about selling the house? That staircase is getting dangerous for you. Mrs. Peterson from church fell on her stairs last year, remember?" I began finding brochures for assisted living facilities on my kitchen counter after their visits. "Just something to think about," Sarah would say casually. My house keys disappeared twice. Each time, Sarah found them in obvious places I had supposedly overlooked. After the second incident, I discovered they had made copies without asking me. My mail started arriving pre-opened. "We were just trying to help organize your bills, Mom," Benjamin explained when I questioned him. "You seemed overwhelmed last month when you missed that electric payment." I hadn't missed any payments. In fact, I had set up automatic payments for all my utilities years ago. The manipulation escalated when they invited my longtime friends Eleanor and Richard for dinner one evening when I was also present. Throughout the meal, Sarah and Benjamin exchanged worried glances whenever I spoke. Later, I learned they had told Eleanor and Richard that I had been diagnosed with early cognitive decline and asked them to report any concerning behaviors they observed. My sister Alice, who lived 2 hours away, received a call from Benjamin expressing concerns about my increasing paranoia. When Alice called me to check in, I broke down in tears, finally sharing the strange behaviors I had been noticing. "Something isn't right, Alice," I confessed. "They're acting like I'm incompetent, but I'm perfectly fine. It's like they want me to doubt myself." "Have you checked your financial accounts lately?" Alice asked, concern evident in her voice. I hadn't, and what I discovered sent a chill through me. Someone had attempted to access my retirement account online multiple times. My bank statements showed several unfamiliar transfers that had been reversed by the fraud department. And most alarmingly, there was a document I had never seen before among my papers, a power of attorney form with my signature on it. Except it wasn't my signature. Someone had forged it. The truth began to unravel on a Tuesday afternoon when I stopped by Sarah and Benjamin's house unexpectedly. I had brought over a casserole, thinking it might help ease whatever tension was causing the rift between us. No one answered the front door, but their cars were in the driveway. I walked around to the back patio, where the family often gathered on nice days. Through the sliding glass door, I could see Benjamin at the dining room table with a man I didn't recognize. Papers were spread out between them. I was about to knock when I heard my name mentioned, and something made me pause. "Margaret's house should sell for at least $380,000 in this market," the stranger was saying. "Once you have the power of attorney finalized, we can list it immediately." Benjamin nodded. "The doctor's report helps our case. Sarah's working on getting her mother to see that specialist, who'll confirm the diagnosis." "And she has no idea?" the man asked. "None. She still thinks Sarah's actually concerned about her memory." Benjamin laughed. "The beauty is, the more she argues, the more confused she appears." I backed away silently, my heart pounding. I drove straight to my sister Alice's house 2 hours away, without even stopping to pack a bag. "They're trying to take everything, Alice," I told her, my hands shaking as I clutched a cup of tea. "They've been planning this for months." Alice believed me immediately. "I never trusted Benjamin," she said. "There was always something calculating about him." The next day, we contacted a lawyer specializing in elder law, Jonathan Mercer. After hearing my story, he suggested we gather evidence immediately. "Financial exploitation of the elderly is more common than people realize," he explained. "But we need proof, not just suspicions." With Mr. Mercer's guidance, I requested all my medical records. What I found was shocking. There were notes about symptoms I had never reported, and conversations with my doctor that had never occurred. Someone had been communicating with my doctor's office, pretending to be me. We also discovered that the power of attorney document, though forged, had been notarized. Mr. Mercer contacted the notary, who admitted she had notarized the document as a favor to Benjamin without me being present, a serious legal violation. Benjamin told me his mother-in-law was housebound, but needed the document processed urgently. The notary explained, now clearly worried about her part in the scheme. My bank records revealed more disturbing information. Small amounts had been systematically withdrawn from my accounts over the past year, never enough to trigger alerts, but adding up to nearly $14,000. Through a mutual friend, we learned that Benjamin's financial advisory business wasn't just struggling, it was failing. He had lost several clients' investments in high-risk ventures and was facing potential lawsuits. Their outwardly comfortable lifestyle was a facade covering mounting debt. Most painfully, We found evidence that Sarah was fully involved in the scheme. A recovered email from her to Benjamin read, "Mom's always been too trusting. Once we have control of her accounts, we can pay off our debts and save the business. She'll be better off in assisted living anyway. She won't need the money." The daughter I had sacrificed everything for was plotting to take what little I had left. But the most damning discovery came from an unexpected source. Lisa, the receptionist at Benjamin's office, who was about to be laid off due to the business's financial troubles, contacted me after hearing rumors about their plans. "They've been talking about this for over a year," she told me, handing over copies of documents she had made. "Benjamin has a whole file labeled Margaret's Assets in his office. I thought you should know." The file contained detailed information about my house, investments, insurance policies, and even a script for Sarah to use when discussing my memory problems with friends and family. There was also a contract with a real estate agent, ready to list my house, with Sarah's forged signature next to mine. With this evidence in hand, Mr. Mercer helped me prepare for the confrontation that would inevitably come. Mr. Mercer advised me to document everything while we built our case. Keep a journal of every interaction. Record conversations if legal in your state. Save emails, texts, voicemails, anything that shows their intentions. I began carrying a small notebook everywhere, jotting down details of every conversation with Sarah or Benjamin. I installed security cameras at my home, which soon captured Benjamin entering with a key while I was out grocery shopping. The footage showed him searching through my filing cabinet and photographing documents. Alice accompanied me to a geriatric specialist recommended by Mr. Mercer, who conducted thorough cognitive testing. The results were clear. I showed no signs of cognitive impairment or dementia. "Your mental faculties are completely normal for your age, Mrs. Cooper," the specialist assured me. "In fact, your memory scores are above average." We secured copies of my financial records going back 3 years, documenting every unexplained withdrawal. The bank's fraud department opened an investigation and found that some withdrawal slips had been processed with a signature that didn't quite match mine. Mr. Mercer hired a private investigator who discovered Benjamin had significant gambling debts beyond his business failures. He owed over $120,000 to various creditors, and there was evidence he had been using client funds to cover personal expenses, a serious securities violation. The investigator also found online searches from the family's home computer for phrases like signs of dementia, how to get guardianship of a parent, and selling property with power of attorney. We learned that Benjamin had consulted with 3 different elder law attorneys in the past year, presumably shopping for someone who would help with their scheme. All had apparently declined to work with him. Most disturbingly, we found evidence they had been slowly isolating me from my support network. Sarah had contacted several of my friends, expressing concerns about my mental state and suggesting they limit their interactions with me for their own safety. "Mom gets confused and makes up stories," she had told my longtime friend Eleanor. "If she says strange things about us, please let us know so we can adjust her medication." They had even approached my pastor at church, suggesting I be removed from the volunteer schedule due to my condition. Pastor Williams, knowing me well enough to be skeptical, had gently asked me about it after Sunday service. His concern was genuine, unlike my daughter's. "They've been quite systematic," Mr. Mercer observed as we reviewed the evidence. "This isn't opportunistic exploitation. This is calculated and planned." With each piece of evidence we gathered, the weight of betrayal grew heavier. The daughter I had raised, who I had sacrificed so much for, had been meticulously plotting to strip me of my autonomy and assets, Yet even as the evidence mounted, part of me hoped there was another explanation. Perhaps Sarah was being manipulated by Benjamin. Perhaps she felt trapped in their financial troubles and saw no other way out. Those hopes were dashed when we recovered text messages between them, obtained legally through the investigation. Sarah. Mom seemed suspicious when I brought up selling the house again. Benjamin. Keep pushing the memory issues. The more confused she appears to others, the easier this will be. Sarah. I hate lying to everyone, but what choice do we have? We need the money. Benjamin. Once it's done, we'll make sure she's comfortable in the facility. She'll never know the difference anyway. Sarah. I know. It's for the best. Her house is worth way more than she needs at her age. The messages confirmed what I had refused to believe. My daughter was a willing participant in the plan to declare me incompetent, take control of my assets, and place me in a facility against my will. Mr. Mercer advised me to prepare for the confrontation that was sure to come. They'll realize something is wrong when they can't access your accounts or move forward with their plans. When that happens, they might become desperate. He was right. The confrontation came sooner than any of us expected, and it was more vicious than I could have imagined. After discovering their plan, I changed all my passwords, installed new locks on my doors, and moved my important documents to a safe deposit box. I also withdrew from contact with Sarah and Benjamin, claiming I had a minor cold and needed rest. The first sign of escalation came in the form of increasingly urgent voicemails. Mom, we need to talk about your living situation. Call me back immediately. Sarah's voice had an edge of irritation. When I didn't respond, the messages became more frequent and demanding. Mom, we're worried sick. If you don't call back, we'll have to come check on you. Benjamin thinks we might need to call for a welfare check. I maintained minimal contact, sending brief text messages, assuring them I was fine but needed some quiet time. 3 days after I changed my locks, I returned from grocery shopping to find Benjamin's car in my driveway. He was standing on my porch, repeatedly ringing the doorbell. When he saw me, his friendly mask dropped. "What did you do to the locks?" he demanded, not even bothering with a greeting. "I had some security concerns," I replied calmly, clutching my house keys tightly. "Security concerns in this neighborhood? Don't be ridiculous, Margaret." He held out his hand. "Give me the new keys. We need to be able to check on you." "That won't be necessary, Andreintine," I said, standing my ground. "I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself." His face darkened. "Sarah is really worried about you. Your behavior is becoming erratic. First the scene at the mall, now changing locks without telling anyone." I moved past him to unlock my door. "Please leave, Benjamin. I'd like to put my groceries away." He blocked my path. "We need to talk about the assisted living options. Sarah's found a place that has an opening next month." "I'm not moving anywhere," I stated firmly. What happened next caught on my new security camera. Benjamin grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises, his face inches from mine. "Listen to me, you stubborn old woman. You're not thinking clearly. Sarah and I know what's best for you." I pulled away. "Get off my property before I call the police." He laughed coldly. "And tell them what? That your concerned son-in-law is worried about your mental health? Who do you think they'll believe?" After he finally left, I called Mr. Mercer, who advised me to file a police report about the physical intimidation. The responding officer was initially skeptical until I showed him the security footage. "Unfortunately, we see cases like this fairly often," the officer said, as he completed his report. "Elder abuse isn't always from strangers." The next escalation came 2 days later. I returned from church to find Sarah, Benjamin, and a man who introduced himself as Dr. Wilson waiting in my driveway. "Mom, we're really concerned," Sarah said, her voice artificially gentle. "Dr. Wilson is a geriatric psychiatrist. He's just going to talk with you a bit." "I haven't agreed to see any doctor," I replied, staying in my car with the doors locked. Dr. Wilson approached my window. "Mrs. Cooper, your family has described some concerning behaviors. A short evaluation would help put everyone's minds at ease." I looked him directly in the eye. "Are you aware that conducting an unauthorized psychiatric evaluation could be considered professional misconduct? Or that my daughter and her husband are under investigation for attempted financial exploitation?" The doctor's expression changed immediately. He turned to Benjamin with a questioning look. "She's paranoid," Benjamin said quickly. "This is exactly what we've been worried about." "I think I should leave," Dr. Wilson said, backing away. Later, we learned he had been told I had agreed to the evaluation and that my paranoid delusions were part of my supposed cognitive decline. The abuse escalated to a new level the following week. I began receiving calls from my friends, asking if I was okay. Sarah had been telling people I was suffering from dementia and having violent episodes. She claimed they were considering legal guardianship for my own safety. The final straw came when I discovered they had scheduled a competency hearing without my knowledge, using the forged power of attorney document and falsified medical records. They were attempting to have me declared legally incompetent in a hearing scheduled for the following month. Mr. Mercer immediately filed motions to dismiss the guardianship petition and began preparing for what would become the most painful confrontation of my life. The breaking point came at Ethan's 8th birthday party. Despite everything that had happened, I couldn't bear to miss my grandson's celebration. I brought a carefully wrapped present and my best attempt at a normal smile. The party was in full swing at the local pizza restaurant when I arrived. About 15 children and their parents were there, along with several family friends. Ethan ran to hug me when I came in, bringing a momentary flash of joy amidst all the pain. Sarah approached me with a tight smile. "Mom, I'm glad you felt up to coming." Her voice was loud enough for nearby parents to hear. "Do you need help finding a seat? You seem a little unsteady." I was walking perfectly fine. "I'm okay, thank you," I said, keeping my voice level. The next 2 hours were filled with subtle humiliations. Sarah and Benjamin made a point of helping me with things I didn't need help with, cutting my pizza, refilling my drink, even offering to escort me to the bathroom. Each helpful gesture was performed loudly enough to draw attention. "Mom gets confused in new environments," Sarah told a curious parent. Though I had been to this restaurant dozens of times, I maintained my composure, focusing on Ethan's happiness rather than my own discomfort. When it came time for presents, I watched my grandson open the model airplane kit I had bought him. "Cool. Thanks, Grandma," he exclaimed, examining the box with interest. Benjamin quickly intervened. "That looks pretty complicated, buddy. Maybe we should set it aside until you're a little older." "I could help him build it," I offered. "We could work on it together when he visits." Sarah and Benjamin exchanged looks. "Mom, we've talked about this," Sarah said in a stage whisper. "You're not really up to supervising the children alone anymore." The nearby parents fell awkwardly silent. My humiliation was almost complete. Then came the final blow. As the party was winding down, I overheard Benjamin talking to his brother near the restrooms, unaware that I was around the corner. "The guardianship hearing is next month," Benjamin was saying. "Once that's done, we'll have control of everything. The house should sell quickly." "What about Margaret?" his brother asked. "Where will she go?" "There's a state facility that takes Medicaid once her assets are exhausted," Benjamin replied. It's not the Ritz, but it'll keep her off the streets. Jesus, Ben, that's your wife's mother. Benjamin's laugh was cold. Sarah understands what's necessary. Besides, with her mental state, Margaret won't even know the difference. We're doing her a favor, really. I stepped around the corner, facing them both. The restaurant had quieted as the party ended, and several people turned at the sound of my voice. Is that what you're doing, Benjamin? Doing me a favor by stealing my home and putting me in a state facility? Benjamin's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Margaret, you're confused again. Let's get you home. I'm not confused, I said, my voice growing stronger. I heard every word. You're planning to put me away and take everything I have. He grabbed my arm roughly. Keep your voice down. People are staring. Let them stare. I pulled away from him. Let them see what you're really doing. Sarah rushed over. Mom, you're having an episode. This is exactly why we're worried. Is that what you tell yourself, Sarah? That I'm having episodes? Does that make it easier to steal from your own mother? The restaurant had gone completely silent. At least 20 people, parents, children, staff, were watching the scene unfold. Sarah's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful bitch, she hissed, dropping the concerned daughter act entirely. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done? I gave you everything. My voice broke. I emptied my retirement account for your down payment. I co-signed your loans. I watched your children for free. And this is how you repay me? By trying to declare me incompetent so you can steal what little I have left? Benjamin moved toward me menacingly. You need to leave. Now. Or what? You'll hurt me again, like you did on my porch? I turned to the stunned onlookers. He grabbed me so hard he left bruises. I have it on security video. Sarah's carefully constructed facade cracked completely. You think anyone's going to believe you? We've already told everyone about your dementia. They know you make things up. A woman I recognized as another parent from Ethan's school stepped forward. Actually, Sarah, your mother seems perfectly lucid to me, and I'm a neuropsychologist at University Hospital. Benjamin's brother put his hand on my shoulder. I've heard enough. Margaret, do you need a ride home? As I left with him, I saw my grandson watching with confused, tearful eyes. That image, Ethan witnessing his parents' true nature, was the most painful part of all. In the car, Benjamin's brother Mike was quiet for a long time before speaking. I had no idea they were doing this to you. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, I said, watching the familiar streets pass by. But now everyone knows the truth. That public confrontation witnessed by so many was the turning point. There was no going back now. The battle lines were drawn, and the final fight for my freedom and dignity was about to begin. The guardianship hearing was scheduled for June 15th. Mr. Mercer and I spent the weeks before gathering our final evidence and preparing our strategy. We were ready to not just defend against their claims, but to counter with evidence of their exploitation and abuse. What Sarah and Benjamin didn't know was that I had resources they weren't aware of. After James died, I had received a life insurance payment that I never mentioned to anyone except my sister Alice. Following her advice, I had invested it with a financial advisor, a legitimate one, unlike my son-in-law, and those investments had grown substantially over the years. I had also inherited a small property in the mountains from my Aunt Rose 3 years earlier. The cabin was nothing fancy, but it was paid off, and in my name only. I had kept it as a potential retirement option, never discussing it with Sarah or Benjamin. Additionally, I had been quietly building a consulting business doing bookkeeping for small businesses, working from home on my computer. Many of my clients were people I had helped years ago who valued my expertise and discretion. This provided me with a steady income beyond my Social Security benefits. All told, my hidden assets amounted to approximately $430,000. Not a fortune, but enough to ensure my independence and fight back against Sarah and Benjamin's plans. Mr. Mercer had helped me document all of these resources properly. "They've severely underestimated you, Mrs. Cooper," he said, as we reviewed the financial statements. "They see you as vulnerable and dependent, which gives us an advantage." We also had statements from friends, neighbors, and community members attesting to my mental acuity and independence. My pastor wrote a powerful letter describing my ongoing contributions to church committees and community outreach programs. Most importantly, we had the report from the independent geriatric specialist confirming I showed no signs of cognitive impairment, along with evidence that the medical records Sarah and Benjamin were using had been falsified or manipulated. 2 days before the hearing, we received an unexpected piece of evidence. Mike, Benjamin's brother, contacted us with information about their financial situation. After witnessing the scene at the birthday party, he had done some investigating of his own. "Benjamin has been mismanaging client funds for years," Mike revealed. "He's under investigation by the Securities Commission, though he's managed to keep it quiet so far. They're not just in debt, they're facing potential criminal charges." This explained the urgency of their plan. They weren't just after my assets out of greed. They were desperate to cover up financial crimes before they were discovered. Armed with this final piece of information, we were ready for the confrontation that would determine my future. The family court was smaller than I had imagined. About 30 chairs faced the judge's bench, with tables for each party's representatives. Mr. Mercer and I sat on one side, while Sarah, Benjamin, and their attorney, Ms. Donovan, sat on the other. Several people from the birthday party incident had come to support me, including Mike and the neuropsychologist, Dr. Karen Martinez. Judge Eleanor Watkins, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, reviewed the documents before her with careful attention. I could feel Sarah's glare from across the room, but I kept my eyes forward, my back straight. "We're here today regarding petition case number 47329, a request for guardianship over Margaret Cooper," Judge Watkins began. "I'll hear first from the petitioners." Ms. Donovan stood, projecting confidence. "Your Honor, Sarah and Benjamin White are seeking guardianship over Sarah's mother, Margaret Cooper, due to significant cognitive decline that has rendered Mrs. Cooper unable to make sound decisions regarding her health and finances." She presented their carefully curated evidence, the manipulated medical records, statements from people they had misled about my condition, and the forged power of attorney document. "Mrs. Cooper has become increasingly paranoid," Ms. Donovan continued, accusing her loving family of trying to harm her. "She's made scenes in public, changed locks to keep family out, and shown dangerous lapses in judgment that put both her finances and physical safety at risk." Sarah dabbed at non-existent tears with a tissue for dramatic effect. Benjamin maintained a concerned expression that almost looked genuine. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed their performance myself. When Ms. Donovan finished, Mr. Mercer stood. His approach was methodical and devastating. "Your Honor, not only should this guardianship petition be denied, but we're filing a counter-petition for an elder abuse restraining order against Sarah and Benjamin White." He placed a thick folder on the judge's bench. "The documents before you demonstrate a systematic campaign of elder abuse and attempted financial exploitation. One by one, he dismantled their claims, the security footage showing Benjamin grabbing my arm, the inconsistencies in the medical records, the forged signatures verified by a handwriting expert, the testimony from Dr. Martinez confirming my cognitive health. Furthermore, Mr. Mercer continued, we have evidence that the Whites' motivation is purely financial. They are facing significant debt and potential securities fraud charges. Benjamin White has mismanaged client funds, and they viewed Mrs. Cooper's assets as a solution to their financial problems. Mike testified about Benjamin's statements at the birthday party. Dr. Martinez explained how my behavior showed no signs of cognitive impairment, but rather the natural responses of someone being gaslighted and abused. The most powerful moment came when the notary who had improperly certified the forged power of attorney testified. Mr. White told me Mrs. Cooper was bedridden and unable to come in person. I trusted him because he was a financial advisor. I deeply regret my part in this deception. Throughout all of this, I watched Sarah's face. The mask of concerned daughter slipped away, replaced by barely contained fury as their scheme unraveled. Benjamin grew increasingly pale, especially when Mr. Mercer mentioned the Securities Commission investigation. When it was my turn to speak, I stood tall despite my nervousness. Your Honor, I've lived independently since my husband died 12 years ago. I've managed my finances, maintained my home, and built a small business. I've never been diagnosed with any cognitive condition, and the only symptoms began when my daughter and son-in-law started telling everyone I was confused. My voice grew stronger. I gave them everything I could over the years: money for education, their home down payment, loans for their business. When they needed more, they decided to take what I had left instead of earning it honestly. I looked directly at Sarah. The hardest part isn't the betrayal or the manipulation. It's knowing that my own daughter, whom I loved more than anything in this world, was willing to throw me away like garbage once I was no longer financially useful to her. Judge Watkins asked pointed questions throughout the proceedings. When Sarah tried to interject with accusations about my paranoid delusions, the judge cut her off sharply. Mrs. White, the evidence before me shows a disturbing pattern of deception on your part, not your mother's. After 3 hours of testimony, Judge Watkins delivered her ruling. I am denying the petition for guardianship in its entirety. Furthermore, I am granting Mrs. Cooper's request for a protective order against Sarah and Benjamin White. She removed her glasses and looked directly at Sarah and Benjamin. I am referring this case to the district attorney for criminal investigation into elder abuse, attempted fraud, and document forgery. Mr. White, I suggest you contact your attorney regarding the Securities Commission investigation as well. Her final words were delivered with quiet fury. In my 20 years on the bench, I have seen many troubling cases of elder exploitation, but few have been as calculated and heartless as this one. This court will not be a party to such abuse. As the gavel fell, Sarah stood up abruptly, her face contorted with rage. This is ridiculous. She's manipulating all of you. Benjamin grabbed her arm. Sarah, stop. It's over. Security escorted them out as they continued to protest. I sat quietly, feeling neither joy nor triumph, only a profound sadness that it had come to this. Mike approached me afterward. Margaret, I am so sorry. I had no idea what they were planning. Thank you for your help, I told him sincerely. Ethan and Lily are lucky to have an uncle like you. As we left the courthouse, several reporters who had gotten wind of the case approached for comments. Mr. Mercer shielded me from their questions, helping me to the car where Alice waited. It's over, I told her as we drove away, but it doesn't feel like a victory. It's not, she agreed, squeezing my hand. But it's justice, and that's what you needed. The aftermath of the hearing brought swift changes for everyone involved. The district attorney opened an investigation into Sarah and Benjamin's actions, resulting in charges of attempted elder abuse, financial exploitation, and forgery. Benjamin also faced securities fraud charges related to his mismanagement of client funds. Their reputation in the community was shattered. Friends and neighbors who had believed their lies about my condition now avoided them. Benjamin's remaining clients withdrew their investments. They were forced to sell their house and move to a small apartment in another town. The hardest consequences fell on my grandchildren. Ethan and Lily were confused and frightened by the sudden changes in their lives. Through Mike, I arranged to send them birthday and Christmas gifts, but Sarah refused to let them see me. The children are the innocent victims in all this, I told Alice, as we sorted through photos of happier times. They didn't ask for any of this. My own life took an unexpected turn. With the threat removed and my independence secured, I faced the question of what to do next. The house on Maple Street held too many painful memories now. After much consideration, I decided to sell it and move to my aunt's cabin in the mountains. The property needed some renovations, which I could easily afford with my savings and the proceeds from selling my house. "Are you sure about this, Margaret?" Alice asked when I told her my plans. "It's pretty isolated up there." "I'm sure," I replied. "After everything that's happened, some peace and quiet sounds perfect." I contracted with a local builder to add modern amenities to the cabin while preserving its rustic charm. By October, my new home was ready, a cozy 2-bedroom cabin with a wraparound porch and stunning views of the mountains. The nearest town was just 10 miles away, with a tight-knit community that welcomed me warmly. My bookkeeping business continued to thrive, as I could work remotely with my existing clients. I joined the local community center, where I volunteered teaching financial literacy classes to young adults. The irony wasn't lost on me, using the same skills I had tried to teach Sarah to help others avoid financial pitfalls. 6 months after the move, I received an unexpected letter from Benjamin's brother, Mike. He had been granted temporary guardianship of Ethan and Lily, while Sarah and Benjamin dealt with their legal troubles. "The kids miss you," he wrote. "Would you consider a visit? They have so many questions, but they need their grandmother." The reunion with my grandchildren was cautious at first. Ethan, now 9, was reserved and watchful. 7-year-old Lily clung to Mike's leg, peeking at me shyly. "Grandma," Ethan finally asked, "are you mad at us, too?" "Oh, sweetheart," I said, my heart breaking. "I could never be mad at you. None of this was your fault." Slowly, over cookies and hot chocolate, we began to rebuild our relationship. I didn't disparage their parents, despite everything that had happened. Instead, I focused on making sure they knew they were loved, and that some things, like a grandmother's love, were unconditional. As winter turned to spring, Mike brought the children to visit me at the cabin regularly. We went hiking, fished in the nearby stream, and baked together in my cozy kitchen. Ethan finally got to build that model airplane with my help. Lily and I planted a small garden beside the cabin. My sister Alice eventually moved to a small house in the nearby town, giving us both the independence we valued and the family connection we needed. The most unexpected development came a year after the court hearing. I received a letter from Sarah, postmarked from the minimum security facility, where she was serving a 16-month sentence. "Mom," she wrote, "I don't expect forgiveness, and I won't insult you with excuses. What we did was unforgivable. But I want you to know that I think about what I lost every day, not the money or the house, but you. I threw away the one person who always loved me unconditionally, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. I read the letter several times, my emotions a complex mix of pain, anger, and a tiny seed of something that might someday grow into forgiveness. I didn't respond immediately. Some wounds need time to heal, and trust, once broken so completely, doesn't return overnight. 2 years after moving to the cabin, I celebrated my 63rd birthday surrounded by new friends and the family that remained loyal. As I blew out the candles on my cake, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. I had lost my daughter to greed and deception. I had faced betrayal from those I trusted most. But I had also discovered strength I didn't know I possessed, built a new life filled with purpose, and protected the legacy I would someday leave to my grandchildren. "Make a wish, Grandma," Ethan urged as the candles flickered. I smiled at the faces around me: Alice, Mike, Ethan, Lily, and the new friends who had become like family. "I already have everything I need," I told them truthfully, and the wisdom to appreciate it. Life had taught me painful lessons about family, trust, and resilience. Not all family is defined by blood, and sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is walking away from those who cause harm, no matter who they are. My new life wasn't what I had planned or expected. It was quieter, simpler, but also richer in many ways. I had learned that it's never too late to start over, to define your own worth, and to build a life based on genuine connections rather than obligation or manipulation. As the sun set over the mountains that evening, I sat on my porch swing watching Ethan and Lily chase fireflies in the yard. The pain hadn't disappeared entirely. It probably never would. But alongside it had grown something stronger: the certainty that I had done what was necessary to protect myself, ultimately, to show my grandchildren what dignity and self-respect truly mean. That, in the end, was the greatest justice of all. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.